I think it's us against this state and its many beneficiaries and accomplices. That's really what it comes down to. Once I saw things in that way, most things seem to make sense.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for December 30th, 2024 through January 6th, 2025 while supplies last. This week we feature 2024 1-ounce silver eagles at just $4.85 over spot, one of the lowest premiums we've seen in years. We have a limited supply, so these are first come, first serve. Next, 2024 1/10-ounce gold eagles are just $44.99 over melt per coin. We also have an incredible deal on XF $20 gold Liberty coins at just $75 over melt, one of the lowest premiums on pre-33 gold we've seen in a long time. And finally, 1/10-ounce Gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this distinguished returning guest. Michael Rectenwald is here. He was a nominee for the Libertarian Party's candidate for president in the 2024 race. He's also the author of multiple books, the most recent of which is The Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty, Unraveling the Global Agenda. He's known also as the anti-woke professor. And Michael, thank you for joining us again on Liberty and Finance.
It's good to be here, Donegan. Thanks for having me.
We're glad that you could join us. Today is Friday, January 3rd, 2025. We're grateful for this new year. We look forward to great things from this year and opportunities for improving individual liberty, freedom, privacy, etc. A lot of concerns in the winds about the direction that our country has been heading and whether that can be turned in a better direction for the freedom and the rights of individuals. One of the things we're watching is the new incoming Trump administration announcing lots of plans to shake things up in Washington and around the country. We'd like to get your view. You've been looking closely at some aspects of that. One aspect of that I want to make sure that we do touch on is personal privacy, property rights, and freedom, what the outlook is for that. You've also been zeroing in fairly closely on some noise surrounding Elon Musk's statements regarding the need for foreign workers at X and elsewhere. Can you first take us to that phenomenon that you've been looking at and what your thoughts are about it?
Yeah, there's been a big dust-up on X, and it's spilled over into the media. This has been picked up by numerous sources that Elon Musk has been proposing and recommending that we actually accelerate the H1-B visas to bring in foreign workers for high-tech purposes. They want to have quantum computing and AI running everything. So this caused a great deal of dust-up, causing many people to object to Elon Musk, and after they did so, many people were demonetized and eventually many others banned from the X site over this. This is a tempest in a teapot, but on the other hand, you're looking at the some facet of the incoming administration, with Elon Musk having a great deal of influence, having donated $250 million to the Trump campaign or to one of the PACs, I suppose. And so likewise, there was Musk said some pretty disturbing things to MAGA people, or America First people, I should say, really, more strictly speaking. Some of the things I can't repeat on YouTube, they would not, and I don't want to sully your show with them, but they weren't kind, and this has caused a great deal of consternation. And then also, of course, he dropped a lot of people, banned a lot of people from the site, demonetized others. People lost their premium check marks and all that. But the bigger question is whether, in fact, Musk will have an inordinate influence over Trump, in particular regarding immigration, because this was one of the key issues, I believe, in the election, and Trump himself said it was the key issue. I think it's probably secondary to other things, but I think it still was very important to the electoral process. And likewise, if Trump is going to renege on some of his previous promises, that would be problematic, I think. And it would look bad for the future of American workers, especially in high tech, where I think there has been a tendency to lay off American workers and to hire people on H1-B visas. I think Musk underwent a tremendous upheaval of firing a lot of employees at Tesla and elsewhere and replacing them with H1-B visa holders. This is this is certainly nothing like a MAGA talking point, to say the least. And then, of course, we were talking before the show started about Musk being a rather, at best, ambiguous character, especially with reference to liberty and his, I would say, his desiderata to basically mine human thought using Neuralink and things like that. This would be, it's very, very clear that once you connect the brain to the internet, you can start having two-way communications with the brain, which means they can actually supplant your thoughts. So that's a big problem. And and other things along those lines. But the main point being, I think, that we're going to have to be extremely vigilant. And I don't think that there's any gimmies coming down the line in terms of this administration. There's going to be a lot of tug and pull, a lot of conflict, as we see now already over the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who I don't approve of, and certainly Thomas Massie, who I take my use for a litmus test for just about everything in Congress, does not approve of. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about on those lines.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of support broadly for Musk's reputation as someone who gets things done, someone who knows how to do things efficiently, someone who's a sharp businessman who cuts through perhaps, maybe deep state or existing accumulated administrative blockages and just rams through and gets stuff done. But there are reasons for concern because of many of the statements that he has made and actions that he's taken that show him to have just a very much a positive willingness to talk about replacing humans with AI, replacing humans with robots. He said maybe end up with 10-1 in terms of numbers of robots to numbers of humans, that sort of thing. And also in this area where, yes, it's not the same as if Trump is saying we need to stop this uncontrolled, basically invasion across the southern border of completely unknown people from 70 different countries and no vetting and no documentation and all that sort of thing. But it's different from that to say we need more high-tech workers. But there's been enough concern about America's security being at risk from high-tech services or products coming in from China or from other countries outside the U.S. where we're dependent then, and the potential for backdoors or Trojan horses or whatever influences that may affect our lives and outside of our control. A lot of this, our channel was founded as Reluctant Preppers, talking about preparedness and talking about how the individual can take proper informed action to make sure that we're standing up for the freedom and the rights of ourselves and our families and our communities. A lot of these broad statements about AI and about our lives being determined by forces outside of us doesn't warm the hearts of people who are looking for more self-control and more autonomy in their lives. You, as a libertarian candidate and nominee, were very concerned about supporting individuals in the face of this global overreach and that sort of thing. And yet you mentioned to me before we started this interview that things which people were complaining that Klaus Schwab was calling for, they're realizing, wait a minute, some of the things that Elon Musk is calling for sound remarkably similar. Are there any particular parallels that you've drawn and areas you think we need to be particularly cautious at anticipating?
Yeah, I think that there's the possibility of, enhancing and beefing up, believe it or not, this climate change regime using carbon credits as the alibi for doing so. And likewise, actually increasing bureaucratic red tape and also limiting our freedom to choose what we'd like to use for transportation and whether we use gasoline and things like this, I think, or it could be that Musk might represent, and a lot of people are saying this, I'm not the only one, a kind of Trojan horse where globalism gets in under the guise of MAGA and actually ends up steering the course in a way that people have absolutely no desire to go in, I think. That is also, I think, the replacement of human labor, not just menial labor, but mental labor. This is a big concern. And the question about AI has to be on the table in terms of human redundancy. And, without income, people don't have much liberty. So these are not good developments. And I think that there's many aspects of Musk that sort of do resemble fourth industrial revolution promises made by Klaus Schwab that we'll basically merge the humans and machines. We will basically merge data with human knowledge so that everything is datafied and likewise controlled. And AI poses a possibility of being the most methodically tyrannical type of dictatorship possible, given the possibilities that it's used to monitor behavior and curb certain actions in advance. So there's a lot going on there. I know that's a lot to dig into, but I should say that to keep it grounded, that once again, I would argue that people need to focus on local networks and establishing and strengthening those, and trying to stay out of the chamber that they may be under construction at this time.
Yeah, and you mentioned the AI and other things taking away human ability to earn, and then that's where do you have liberty if you don't have earnings? The other thing is it takes away our agency when things become so complex we can't even understand them. Already the tax code is that way. It's been stated that there is no single individual who understands the entire tax code. So even if you ask your tax advisor, a lot of people are going to be talking to their tax advisors over the next few months, you may get the wrong answer. Or even if you ask the IRS and they give you the wrong answer, it's not their fault because it's so complex. So anything that's so complex that an ordinary person can't put their brains around it means you can't have dominion over it. It has dominion over you, or potentially could. And it sounds like much of our lives are headed in that direction. In your book, and I'm going to go back to read the title of it again because I think people should be really aware of this, The Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty, Unraveling the Global Agenda. You talk about a multi-step plan you've called the Great Refusal, a great tag for that, and you've walked us through that in the past. With this perspective of the incoming Trump administration and maybe some of the concerns swirling around Elon Musk, are there any aspects of your Great Refusal plan from your book that you would like to emphasize that people should strongly consider doing?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, the number one point in that grand refusal was to reject the CBDC, and I think that's hopefully we won't have to be faced with that prospect immediately. I do believe that Trump is opposed to the CBDC, but we need to make sure that we don't get corralled into it by virtue of the fact that of convenience, as they'll put it, or inclusion, or whatever rhetoric they want to put on this, because this would be closing the totalitarian circle, because you now would not really have freedom over anything in terms of purchasing, and your finances would be effectively transparent to the Fed. and likewise to the federal government. That would be a disaster. And also there could be many curtailments of what you could do with your money based on different criteria like climate change or other things, or, a social credit score of some sort, which comes with the digital identity. So all of those things have to be rejected. The CBDC, the digital identity, and then, of course, these enhancements that of the type that Musk is talking about, actually, with Neuralink, unless you need some enhancement for a disability as a prosthesis, I don't think enhancements are in your best interest at all. I know this may be a little bit far down the road, but it's not that far away. I think that we're already looking at the possibility of these kinds of enhancements being offered. I would put enhancements in scare quotes because they're certainly not, I don't think, beneficial. I think they are potential means for total control, inclusive of your actual thoughts. So that would be a problem. And then I think a lot of the other things, as far as Trump goes, it's possible that Trump will refuse the WHO pandemic treaty, which would be a major plus. He might refuse the World Health Organization altogether, hopefully withdraw from it, and that would solve some of those problems, at least for the time being. We can't ever rest because these globalists have different ways to go about the same things, trying to skin a cat in more than one way, and they'll try to sneak things in on us. So, even over on the administration as well. So, but we can stay vigilant and not give into or accede to these types of technological enhancements or digital money or digital identity, and then of course getting into I think the ESG thing is kind of taking a back seat, but it could come back through the tax credits, carbon credits, and so forth. So you then try to stay out of the carbon economy if possible, which is really, I think the future is what they're going to try to gauge everything on will be on energy. Energy will be, in effect, the mode of circulation, the currency, really, buying and selling energy credits. I would stay out of it because it's just a total rigged game in order to rig the economy in a certain way. And so I would avoid getting involved in that, either with your company or with your own personal finances.
It's distressing how much what has come our way and appears to be still coming our way is misrepresented or misnamed or pitched to make it sound benign. And then you look at it in the end, you go, wait a minute, I just lost my freedom to have privacy. I just lost my private property rights. I just lost my ability to make my own decisions or whatever, because these things are now being, or to even understand the system. And I wanted to clarify one thing that probably most people understood, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. When you talk about resisting or refusing enhancements, what you're talking about is the potential for implants, for example, into the human brain that would make it so, for example, rather than needing to do a Google search to look up some fact, the fact would just be there. In fact, even now when you watch some of the old game shows, such as the old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or whatever, for televised back when it was Regis Philbin, 20, 30 years ago, and people phone a friend and they ask the question and they have 30 seconds to give an answer. It's like, well, that wouldn't even work today because people could obviously have searched by that time. And you're talking about if a fraction of the population start going for such enhancements, then you're going to go up as a applicant for a job or go to an interview or whatever, and you're competing against people who basically are tapped into search engines in their brain all the time, and you're trying to actually do recall as a human being, which is an uneven playing field and shouldn't have to be that way. Other concerns that you have about the trend as we head into 2025, things that you think might be coming sooner than later that people should keep their eyes open for?
Yeah, well, this recent spate of terrorism is very concerning because I'm afraid that it might be used as a pretext for, the military-industrial complex and its continued robbery of the American taxpayer. I think that is something that I speak against all the time. I'm a non-interventionist, and I think that the U.S. should not be funding or arming other countries, and we should really cut all foreign aid altogether. In my opinion, all foreign aid should be cut, and not to be prejudicial. It'll just be down the line, all foreign aid cut. And most of it is totally wasted. Look at all the money that's going to Ukraine, the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars to no end, and so forth. So that is something I would like. This is kind of like a mind virus that you have to have sort of resistance to. The implanting of this idea that we need to maybe go to war with Iran or something because of these Muslim attacks, these putatively Muslim attacks. I don't put anything past the regime, the deep state, or whatever you might want to call it, to use this as a kind of pre-coding to initiate more foreign conflicts.
Right. So if I understand what you're saying, a lot of events can be used to elicit by the news, the way that it's explained on the news, and people keep hearing about these on the news, and you start to move the hearts and minds of the population to, yeah, we should do something about this. This is a problem. And then the solution is then delivered by those who wanted to deliver that solution in the first place. Now that the crowd's asking for it, they go, oh yes, okay, well, let's take us to war. And that seems to be the ultimate. In fact, we just interviewed Joel Salatin, who was nominated to be on Trump's transition team as an advisor to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Has not yet been clarified whether that selection is going to happen or not. But his point is that farm subsidies in general, they pick winners and losers. They only support certain crops and not others. It just gets entrenched, and pretty soon you end up with this culture of expectance and dependence, where people think, how could we ever survive as a country if we didn't keep up all these supports? And these supports, people don't realize that what Margaret Thatcher was quoted as saying decades and decades ago is the government has no money. The government has no money that it doesn't take from its own citizens. So
it's a purely extortion. I mean, in many regards, because a lot of these services are not for us, and they haven't done anything for. Look at the people in Western North Carolina, still people living in tents while we're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. It's just an outrage. So, I don't know what people can do about that other than object.
Well, some they've acted directly, and they've been as good Samaritans, and they've tried to help their neighbors there, which is admirable. And unfortunately, there was some official interference with that on the part of officialdom, because they thought they needed to be in charge and in control of everything, and yet it ended up delaying and, in some cases, preventing people from getting the urgent help that they needed from good Samaritans. So we can certainly reach out to our elected representatives and tell them how we feel about that, and that we think that we should be supporting our own infrastructure and our own crying needs within the borders of our country, rather than assuming that we need to be propping up other regimes elsewhere. Now, you've got your book that we've mentioned, and we'll put a link to that in the description of this video. You also write on Substack. How can people find you there?
Yes, it's Michael Rectenwald. I think it's michaelrectenwald.substack.com, or just go on Substack and search for me, Michael Rectenwald. It'll come up, and you'll see I post pretty regularly, and that's where I'm basically, releasing all my new material there. And I'm also working on another book, actually two. One's an academic book, and that will be of no interest to most of your listeners. But then I'm also working on a novel, and that probably wouldn't be no interest either. But in any case, the novel's about freedom and the many ways that the state and its accomplices attempt to keep us from having it.
One of the principles that seems to keep emerging about foreign aid or funding for wars is that it's an almost open checkbook then to just almost unlimited amounts of funds that can be gotten out the door and gotten into certain hands. And when individuals such as in one case it was Rand Paul, before we started sending money to Ukraine, supposedly was saying, okay, how are we going to be tracking this? Where's the accountability? Where's the monitoring of this? And right away there were labels of, oh, you're a Putin's tool. You're a puppet of Russia if you're wanting us to do accounting of where we send these billions overseas. What do you think ordinary people who feel that there should be a curtailment of overseas monies or curtailment of foreign wars or accountability for the money that is spent, what can ordinary people do to influence that?
Well, I mean, they took the first step, I guess, with voting, and hopefully that'll have some effect. I mean, there are certain people that'll go on to the point of tax resistance, and I'm certainly not going to recommend that. I don't want to go to jail. And but I would say that this really has got to do with political pressure at that point. Unfortunately, we don't have a situation. We have a situation where we have a federal behemoth that really rules over us and extracts money from us against our will, with no contract. It's the only entity that we deal with that can take money from us with no contract whatsoever. Just to put that out there.
Yeah, and you might have noticed the colors on my tie. I've got the blue and the red and the purple in honor of the Uniparty. So anyway, to realize that there's more to it than the left and right sides of the aisle. There's the people, we the people.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I think it's us against this state and its many beneficiaries and accomplices. That's really what it comes down to. Once I saw things in that way, most things seem to make sense. And then you can have a certain, it's kind of like a master key that opens up a lot of things and makes them make sense, I think.
The perspective with which we look at the world makes all the difference. And we're certainly being handed the preferred perspective in the mainstream media and even in mainstream internet searches. You talked a lot about that. We're being told, this is how you shall think about this sort of thing. This is the information you're going to see. This is the information you're not going to see. Any thoughts you have for people who want to get beyond that curated view that's being prepared for us of what's true and what's untrue, what's reality, what's fake news, what's malinformation? How do you suggest that people refuse that as part of your grand refusal?
Well, that's a really good one. Basically, you're saying how do people refuse the manufacturing of consent or whatever you want to call it? Chomsky had a couple good points, not many, but that was one of them. And the idea there is that you have to have a buttress against it. You have to be inoculated against it, and that comes with, I'm afraid, work. It takes reading, it takes research, it takes individual independent thought. And to keep that alive is maybe one of the main goals of my life. The independent thought survives all of the onslaughts that are going up against it, inclusive of, basically mind control vis-a-vis, Neuralink type companies. But I think it takes work, I'm afraid. It's going to take research, work, and continual fearless search for the truth.
Well, we're grateful for your presence here, helping to provide an alternative viewpoint, and that the very nugget that you shared with us about once you saw things as the state versus the people, how that made many other things that had been bewildering suddenly seem clear. I think it's a great idea for those who want to follow your ongoing writing on Substack. We'll make sure to put a link to your Substack in the description of this video. And remember, everyone, only half of our viewers are subscribers to Liberty and Finance, even though it's free. So if you're not a subscriber, just click the subscribe button on the platform that you're on. And if you want to not miss a single episode with Michael Rectenwald, make sure that you're on our free mailing list by going to libertyandfinance.com. That's libertyandfinance.com. Put in your email address, click submit. You'll get one confirming email. Once you confirm, then you'll get one email in your inbox per day with our latest interviews and any specials. And as we do with all of our guests, Michael, I thank you for joining us here on behalf of all of our viewers and subscribers and myself here on Liberty and Finance.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Duncan.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for December 30th, 2024 through January 6th, 2025 while supplies last. This week we feature 2024 1-ounce silver eagles at just $4.85 over spot, one of the lowest premiums we've seen in years. We have a limited supply, so these are first come, first serve. Next, 2024 1/10-ounce gold eagles are just $44.99 over melt per coin. We also have an incredible deal on XF $20 gold Liberty coins at just $75 over melt, one of the lowest premiums on pre-33 gold we've seen in a long time. And finally, 1/10-ounce Gold Britannia are just $29.99 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.